Friday is
Check, check. Phrase it, but now I might feel that. I like to. Just the number 7. Logan famously said, in the stadium or 4 actually. Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, I have to oh, that's fine. Only the
I didn't know you guys had CW.
yeah, I did a lot of brush. Yeah. They do the game, the high school games on Friday night there. Yeah, that's good. Logan.
We're going to start off Coach Day today to the right, Doc Berry.
Wow, new leadoff man.
Wow.
Changing up the order. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Neither does he.
The first playoff ranking comes out tonight. How much will you pay attention to that? And what do you say to the kids about it at this point?
Yeah, I don't really say much about it. I mean, I know it's great for college football and for everybody to talk about, but nobody talks about who was ranked in week 8, 9, or 10. They always talk about where it was at the end of the season, and that's all that matters to us is playing in this game, because if we want to be ranked high, we have to keep winning.
You faced a desperate team in Penn State last week. What about this week? Another desperate team?
Well, I've watched the film, and this is a very good team. The way that they've played, first off, statistically ranking in both sides of the ball, they're very good. I think they're 27th in the country, and scoring. They've played team up north tough. They played Oklahoma tough. They played Michigan State tough. And so I've just been very impressed with them and think they're doing a great job. So just like any other game in the Big Ten, especially when you go on the road, this is going to be a battle. And, it is truly like March Madness right now. If you win, you move on. And we have to look at every game that way. I mean, it's quite a run we're on. We knew that 2 weeks ago when we started it. But this is a very, very good Nebraska team that we have to be ready for. And I don't care what the record says. I mean, I watched the film, and then they're good, and they have good coaches. So we got to have a great week of practice.
Hey, Ryan. I was curious. I wanted to ask about the linebacker room. I mean, it's even smaller than normal heading into Nebraska based on the call against Steele. And I'm wondering how he's taken this week, especially with missing that first half, and what do you expect in his absence during the first half?
Yeah, I think first off, it's a unique situation in that it was the first play of the second half. So it's really brought light in my eyes to the fact that there's some inequity on this rule, where if it's the first play of the second half or the last play of the second half, that's significantly different. And so in my mind, the rule should be changed into a 30-minute penalty as opposed to the number of halves, because when you do it shouldn't be the determining factor on how the penalty is assessed, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, as you know, we're playing, with a different style of defense now, and we play with 3 safeties now. So, the numbers have changed with that, but now, EA is going to have to come in there and step up. Tommy's going to have to get in there, and Coach Washington will move those guys around, and then get Steele back in the second half.
Field, linebacker, safeties. What have you seen from those guys in terms of pass coverage? And what do you want to see in terms of improvement? It seems like a lot of opponents are attacking you guys from the slot, tight ends, like just in the middle of the field. What have you seen from them, and what do you guys want to improve?
Yeah, I think anytime you mix up the coverages, you're going to see different teams attack you different ways, and consistency with our drops, and like you said, with our eyes, are all things that we're working on, and making sure that we all work together on this thing, because when you do play zone, everybody has to be in their area of the field and doing a great job in that. So I think there's different styles of attack based on what we're giving the defense, or what we're giving the offense in terms of looks, and I think that they've had some really good snaps and things they need to improve on, but it's the same message that we've had. The issues are still there, and we got to keep addressing them, even though we played better on Saturday night.
Right in the middle, Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, I want to ask you about CJ running the ball. He's not running very often. Is that because you're telling him not to run to try and protect him, and because you guys have so many weapons on offense, or do you feel like he should be running a little bit more?
No, I think we have some runs where he's reading somebody, and then based on what that defender does, he'll make the decision whether to run it or not, and we have that as part of the offense. And then there's also ones where we're scrambling and making plays downfield, and going back on the film, I thought he made pretty good decisions. With his eyes downfield, he got the third down conversion to Mayan. Mayan put it on the ground, but it ended up getting reversed. I thought he did a good job on the one to Garrett. So he's doing a good job of extending plays. And then he's also done a good job this year of making plays with his feet. And he'll continue to have to do that. That's going to have to be part of his game. And, looking back on it, I don't think there's many that, I would have him do anything other than what he did. But certainly that is a part of his game.
I'm not suggesting he should run the ball 10 times a game. I know he's not Justin Fields, but typically, in an ideal world, how much do you want that to be a part of your offense? Both him scrambling at times and a couple of, called quarterback runs.
Yeah, I think it just depends on what the defenders do, and if we're reading somebody and they're playing the quarterback, then it's a handoff. If they play the running back, then it's a pull, and so you just don't know, but we have part of that in our offense, and when we read, and there's certain plays we just hand the ball off, and then we have the nakeds off of those.
Front row right, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, back to the Steel Chambers targeting penalty. You mentioned some, the inequity with to miss now the first half against France. Did you feel it was the right call at the time? And you looked pretty animated on the sideline during that play.
Yeah, I just feel like in real time, it's a very difficult call. I think if you're Steele in that spot, someone's running full speed at you and then goes down on their knees, boy, it's just in real time, that's very, very difficult. And, I think that the rule is in place for the right reasons to protect our players. And so for that, I absolutely support it. But I also think that there's a difference between what's going on in real time and what's shown on a replay. And that's the challenge that our referees are faced with. And it's not easy. Don't get me wrong. And certainly we're always going to advocate for our guys. And that's what I was doing.
Master, you mentioned he was, close to returning last week. He was on the unavailable list. Just what's your plan of practice this week, or just what's the plan with him?
Yeah, kind of day to day right now, and hoping to get some work out of him today.
Third row left, Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, you talked a lot about coaching versus scheme versus execution. When you look at the struggles in the red zone against Penn State, do you look at that as we need to do a better job coaching, we need to call better plays, or do we just need to execute better?
Both. I think we look back and we could have executed much better, certainly in some of the shorter yardage situations. We got ourselves with the penalty a couple times, a false start. And anytime you do that down in the red zone, 5 yards is seems like a mile away. So certainly that was part of it. I also think there was some schematic things we probably, looking back on it, could have done a better job with.
When you just look at, that game, the Oregon game, seems like, two best defenses you've played, you guys haven't had a lot of success in the red zone. What do you think are the things that need to change for, that to not be the case going forward?
Yeah, I think first off, you have to run the ball well when you're in the red zone. That's just part of it. And I think we've thrown the ball well, and I think statistically speaking, we've done a pretty good job down there and always have. But like you said, there was times in both of those games where we just haven't finished drives. And, you can point the finger at a lot of things, but, you have got to execute at a high level in the pass game, and then you have to be able to be really physical in the run game and make 3-yard runs, 5-yard runs. And the minute you get off schedule or take a negative play, you put yourself at risk because you just run out of room. And against good defenses, you have to be on point there. And certainly a plan to win. We spent a lot of time down there, but that is a challenge.
Hi, Coach. Hey, I know you can't control the playoff rankings and all that stuff. It's so early on, but I want to ask you about championship DNA. What is it about this team that you've seen so far through this season that makes you think, hey, we're on the right track where we are capable of being one of those 4 teams?
Well, I think we've experienced a lot so far, and I think that's good for a young team to have experienced big wins, big losses. We've experienced close games. We've played on the road. We've been at home. We played night games. We played afternoon games. We've been up. We've been down. And the offense has played well. The defense has played well. The offense has played okay. The defense has played okay. It's kind of been one of those seasons where we're already experienced a lot of things. So I like that part of it. We are still young, but we've gained a lot of experience throughout the year. But just the day-to-day, I've been impressed with how these guys have approached practice, how serious they approach their preparation. I think this team likes football. They like preparing at a high level. And so now we've got to really prove how consistent we are here in November, because this is where championships are won.
Can you elaborate on the challenges that your offensive line faced this past week? It felt like they had some tough moments that we haven't seen from them in previous weeks.
Yeah. We ended up, when you look at the stat sheet, pretty good in that area, but just the efficiency, I think we were less than 50% efficient running the ball in terms of the number of runs. And, listen, Penn State has done a good job for years with that, and this year is no exception. They have a good front, they have good movement, and I think we were 34 and 34 in terms of plays, pass and run, and we're always looking for that balance, and that's important to be able to control the game, and we have to be able to stay on schedule and stay efficient in the run game, and again, whether it's communicating up front, whether it's handling looks that we haven't seen and making those adjustments. That's all important. And I think we did that, especially in the second half. You can see that we made some really good adjustments in that area and hit some big runs, which was very, very important in controlling that game in the second half. But that's what you have to do in these games. You just can't throw it 70% of the time, or else you're not going to control the game. And I think that's important. But sometimes you have to stick with it and keep working through the tough things. And when you're going against a team like Penn State, that's not always easy.
Quick, their defense, was that the best that they've looked this year?
I think they had good plays for sure. There's still a lot to improve on, and we're going out against a very good defense this week. This is, I think it's the second-ranked offense in terms of total yards in a conference. They do a great job, and Martinez has played a lot of football, and they have a very good scheme. So we'll see. I think there was a lot of positives for sure. Certainly, anytime you create the turnovers we did and get defensive scores, you put our team in a much better position to win. So I think that it's continuing to build, but we've got to continue to, stay disciplined and stay on it. And, we talk a lot about white belt mentality of just starting right at the beginning and starting with fundamentals every week when you start. We got to do that on defense again this week because we got a good team.
And that champion list for the offense was pretty short. Would you ever fudge the numbers to send a message to the team?
No, I think that's something that we talked about early in the season, is that we have a standard here. And in order for you to be a champion, you have to play over 15 plays and grade over 80%. And we had one guy on offense. That was it. And, we can try to make people feel better, but that's not the way this game works. And so, guys got to be held accountable. The position coaches got to be held accountable for their units. each guy's got to be held accountable to do their job over 80% in terms of execution, and that didn't happen. I think if it does, it's a whole different game. But I think that the message is also that, to win ugly like that says a lot about our character and who we are as a team. We didn't just splinter, fall apart, start pointing fingers. We played against a good defense. We didn't execute as well as we'd like to have, but we still won the game against a very good opponent, and it says a lot about this team.
The win is obviously the most important thing, but how powerful of a motivator do you think grading a champion is for an individual?
I don't know, but I think they take a lot of pride in it. I mean, our meetings are pretty juiced up in here. We have a lot of fun with it. The guys who win, I mean, everybody in the room understands that if you grade a champion, there's a lot that goes into that. It isn't just playing well on that day. It's the whole year. It's the sacrifices. It's the lifting. It's the running. It's the preparation in order to be at competitive excellence on that Saturday. And we whoop it up in here, have a lot of fun, bring them down, laugh, and then show clips of those guys playing well. And I think they take a lot of pride in it. I do.
Yeah, I know your mentality is to always treat every game like a playoff game, especially now.
Yeah.
It was easy to get up for Penn State, obviously. You're facing a team that is 3-6. I know they haven't lost a game by more than 8 points.
Right.
How do you kind of make sure that your guys are as up for this game as they were for Penn State or will later on?
Well, you just talk to them about it, and you show them the film, and these guys are sharp. Like you said, they haven't lost a game by, I think it's more than 8 points. So these guys are very good, and you can look at the record if you want, or you can watch the film and realize what you got here. But they need to understand that it is March Madness. And so you watch across the country week in and week out, a lot of things have happened this year. And so we can't let that happen to us. We can't have any regrets. And the only way to do that is to focus on right now and not be distracted. If you start looking ahead, if you start worrying about tomorrow, that's where you get distracted. And we got to stay disciplined in that area.
The game, if you thought that close call would be good for your team, now you've had a few days, you've watched the film. What's your sense of it? Will this help you think?
I hope so. We'll see how this week goes and how this practice week goes. And, if we can get guys to really, dig in and understand that, we have a chance to be really good. We beat a good Penn State team and didn't play our best football. And so I hope that catapults us into this week and into this game and really helps us take off into the month of November.
Last year, there was an NCAA rule giving teams or giving athletes, I guess, the election days off. Did you guys change your practice week at all this week, or did you seek the waiver to keep things, I guess, on the usual schedule?
Yeah, we applied for the waiver and got granted. Yeah.
Why?
Well, we just felt like this year was much different than last year.
On the Neatote, I guess, what do you kind of see as his role right now? Do you like him in kind of a niche situation, or do you see him being able to still build towards something bigger this year?
Well, I think he's going to have to step up this week, Steele being out, and he's coming off of that nagging injury, and so now he's healthy again. And I think when you combine the injury with the fact that he kind of went through preseason not being sure if he was going to play, now he's starting to come around. So now it's about the time he's got to step up.
Ryan, I think when you guys opted to play Thayer and Parris at guard, some of us wondered about just consistent leverage and pad level with bigger guys playing a position. Then you have a right tackle who's 6 foot forever. Has that been any kind of issue with those guys? Did that pop up at all against Penn State on Saturday night?
No, I don't think so. I mean, those guys are doing a great job in there and have. I just think it was more of making adjustments on some of the looks that we got, and it wasn't. Some of the plays were blocked pretty good, and just the timing of everything, and didn't quite pop things out to the next level. Or, but there was other things that we didn't block very well either. So it's a little bit of everything in there. But no, those guys, I think can go to tackle, they can go to guard, they can move around. They're pretty versatile in there, and they have good flexibility, so they can get underneath guys inside.
And down on the red zone, I know you said you were overall fairly pleased with the what you had called, and maybe execution was a problem. We've seen you in the past use a lot of jet motion, orbit motion, just to kind of create some movement down there, and you guys didn't really seem to do much of that. What's the balance between trying to dress some stuff up that way and then just sort of running what you run?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, when you do stuff like that, you're not sure of the look. When you stay stationary, you can kind of identify what the look is, and then try to get into the best play possible. And so that's what we're doing in that game.
Real solid effort. Question number 600. We missed the pass.
of the
Is
year.
that today or?
It's right in here. Yeah.
I see that. See it,
Did you
Jerry.
win anything?
Okay.
You have two guys in the Heisman race. Does that ever come up in conversation, you with them or they with you?
No, we don't talk about that.
And are you surprised at the struggles by Nebraska now in year 4 under Scott Frost?
Again, I think they're very close. I think that when you look at the way they played this year, they played strong, and they have a good team. And I don't follow them that closely, but I just watch the film, and I can tell you they have good coaches, and they're playing well, and they've come up short on some of these games, but I know they're very dangerous.
Third row right, Jeremy Birmingham, Letterman row.
Ryan, to Bill's point, reputationally, you're kind of regarded as one of the premier play callers in the country, and it looked like Saturday was almost intentionally milquetoast in the red zone. Was there any point of that where you guys, as a staff, are challenging your offensive line to win some battles one-on-one? I mean, does that ever come into the conversation?
Well, I think, you have to be able to win down in the red zone running the football. You just do. If you want to go win championships, you have to be able to do that. And we didn't do that well enough down there. And 3 and 4 yard gains have to turn into 5 and 6. We've done a really good job of throwing down there. We have to do a better job of running the ball, and that's just the bottom line. And but there was also some things that got us out of whack in terms of penalties. We get the ball 4th and 1, and down there, and we're going to go for it, and we false start. We false started to make it like 2nd and 13 or whatever that was, and anytime you do that down there, when you're fighting for every inch, it's going to get you out of whack. We hadn't done that in the past, and that we score on those 2 possessions, maybe you feel a little better as well.
On the other side of that, the recruiting weekend that you guys had, obviously you have a night game, you have 50-some visitors in. You did things a little different, had a lot of meetings during the day. And how exhausting was this weekend for you guys as a staff? And do you feel like that's a standard or a practice that you guys are going to try to do in the future?
Yeah, it was a long week and a long weekend for sure. There was a lot going on. It was great. I thought that just the night in general was off the charts. I thought Gene and the whole administration, everybody at Ohio State, the fans. I mean, it was a memorable night. Just the way that everything was run, really first class. And it was great for our recruits and their families to be around it and to see it. And I thought everything about that went well. But yeah, there's a lot going on, a lot to juggle on a weekend like that. With so many visitors and families, and they're a priority for us when they get on campus. But we also have to go win against Penn State and win a game, and so. But that's kind of college football. You have to be able to juggle a lot of balls and be able to handle it.
Front row left, Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
Just to kind of follow up on that, when you guys are putting weekends like that together, when you know there's going to be 50+ people here, are there projection or expectations that some success is going to come out of that in the near future after that, or do you guys just kind of stay patient after that?
It's just a piece of the puzzle. It's part of the relationship building. And anytime you come on campus, you get a chance to see something different, whether it's meeting with somebody from the business school or going to a basketball game or, spending time with the position coach or going to see campus or whatever that is. Coming to a game is a special experience. And that's, another box that these guys are able to check off with their families. And I have to give, Mark Pantoni and his staff a lot of credit. I mean, they're the ones that are behind all of it in terms of the organization and managing all of those people. And there's a lot to that. And I thought they were excellent.
Just switch gears a little bit. This was the first time in a couple of weeks CJ's actually, been kind of challenged out there. It didn't look easy for him the entire time. Maybe how do you think he handled Saturday in comparison to maybe how he ended the Oregon game?
Yeah. No, I mean, I thought he played well and made some good throws. I think he wished he had some plays back, but again, anytime you're competing against somebody like Penn State and a really good defense, one of the top in the country, you're gonna have good plays and bad plays. And we talk about all the time, like reality isn't just going in and scoring on 19 straight possessions. That's not reality. I mean, reality is it's hard, it's tough. Every decision matters. If we're gonna have penalties or we're gonna have mistakes, then we're gonna get ourselves off schedule. And that's just the reality of it. So again, I think a lot to learn from this game, but overall, I thought he played winning football. He didn't grade out a champion, but there was still a lot of positives there.
Front row right, Tim May, Letterman row.
Yeah, Ryan, as you watched the video of that game, did you ever feel like you were part of some grand experiment by the officials to not call holding on the opposing team's offensive line and see how things go. And, in particular, there were some egregious moments out there. Did you make any note of that to the Big Ten, and just what was your take on it?
We always, we'll look at the film afterwards, and if there's things that are concerning, we send it to the office for review and then some feedback, and we did that. Listen, the refs have a tough job. I mean, they hear it from all angles, and I get it, but certainly we have to advocate for our guys, and when we see something that doesn't quite look right, we have to make sure we recognize that and do that in certain ways, but also being respectful and being professional. But I mean, certainly there were some things we did turn in. Yes.
And
answer that the best way possible.
That's pretty good. I don't think you get a fine for that.
Okay, good.
How much does CJ have any autonomy on the field when he sees them stack the box, load the box, to get out of a play, or does that always come from the sideline? Like when y'all frantically
Sure.
signaled in the pass to Chris Olave, which was a huge call. But what is his autonomy at this point in his career?
Yeah. He does have some things where he'll come up and he'll change it, certainly in protection, but even in the run game, he has some things that will give him a couple plays. And we're adding more and more of that to his plate as he goes. But for the most part, we handle most of the decisions on the sideline.
Ryan, specifically in the red zone, I think the second and third down runs before false start on 4th and 1. The backside linebacker kind of knifed in and made 2 tackles. Is that schemed that way and you're leaving that guy and hoping you get around the other side, or is there a blocking assignment that should have been made there?
Yeah, it wasn't executed well. Yeah, no, I mean, we certainly account for him in the blocking scheme, and it just didn't get done. And, one of them, I think we could have executed better. The other one, we probably could have done a better job giving him that look during the week.
And Penn State seemed to, I guess they just shift their defensive line a lot right before the snap. The hard thing is, it felt like you guys blocked up everybody for the first however many games. And so to see any mistakes on the offensive line was surprising.
Sure.
Did that throw you guys off with any of your assignments, those late shifts, and what can you learn from that going forward?
Yeah, no, it did. And I thought they did a good job with the way that they kind of changed up the looks. And there's a lot to learn from it, and the different looks that we can give them. Sometimes you're going to see things that you haven't practiced, and I think we can probably help them a little bit too in terms of how we're identifying things when we start to get into a game like that a little bit faster. I thought we did a good job of that in the second half. Probably could have got to that a little bit sooner. Yep.
Far left, Mark Snyder, press pros.
Snap count penalties. Was there a common thread with those other than them being flagged, or was it try to get the jump on them because the running game was not going? Because that was so uncharacteristic.
1,000%. Yeah, no, I can't sit here and tell you there was one thing there that got us out of whack. I think some of maybe the pre-snap movement a little bit, for Luke, especially at center, got us a little bit, out of whack there. But there was nothing else in particular that we can point to on that area other than just lack of focus and discipline. And we've got to do a better job of that this week.
When you're in practice the next 2 days, I mean, is that something that's easily cleaned up, or is that, because again, that didn't happen.
Right. Yeah, no. And usually if a guy false starts or something, we'll have him do a lap, and we're all over that. And we haven't had that many of those issues, but we'll be all over it this week to try to get it addressed. Yeah.
Go to the far right, Adam Cape, WBNS.
You guys had another defensive score this week. I think Teron Cape's probably still out there running, trying to recover. But how does that help you guys offensively with a young quarterback build his confidence up, knowing that your defense is putting up points as well?
Yeah, I mean, well, when you get something like that happen, it flips the game, and I think it's the 6th time this year, which is unbelievable. So it's a huge lift for the offense. And I think that when you look at Jaron's career here, it's a tribute to him and his hard work. It hasn't always gone exactly the way that he's wanted, and he went through kind of a tough September and August there, and to see him do that and have that opportunity in that game, I mean, that's something I'll definitely remember from this year, is that the fact that he came up in that big spot and made that play. So it was exciting for everybody to see that.
Hey Ryan, you had a couple in-state offers go out Saturday night. Just wondering if the recruiting philosophy of recruiting in-state guys is changing at all moving forward? Maybe offering guys a little sooner than you might have in the past?
Well, we've been able to actually see guys play, which has been great. We actually have been able to get back on the road for the first time in a couple of years, and that's really helped. And then, we now have a lot more video to go off of, and we're seeing guys in person. We almost went a year and a half without being able to look somebody in the eye. And now when they're on campus, we can do that. We can watch the film. We can actually go watch them play in a game, and then they come over and we get to see them in person and shake their hand and see what they look like physically and project, how they can physically mature. And that really allows us the opportunity to get ahead of this stuff.
Yeah, and then asked you last week about the big official visits weekend, first week of June. Had a lot of those same guys in that week on campus again this weekend. Yeah. Did you feel like it was a bookend to that weekend in June? And was that sort of the hope or the plan when you guys did that originally in June?
No, but I think that those first couple weekends in June were an opportunity for us to do what I just said, see people in person, look them in the eye, shake their hand, get to know what they're like. We didn't know what these guys were like. You can go on Zoom and you can make phone calls, but that's very different. And that's a huge part of recruiting, especially for me as the head coach, because, the talent is the talent. We're looking for the right fit, guys who want to be Buckeyes, who love Ohio State. When adversity hits, they're going to work through tough times and not just get into the transfer portal. And so a big part of recruiting is looking somebody in the eye and saying, this is the right place for me. And we also feel the same way. And that's why we had so many guys here in June, because we need to look guys in the eye to find out if they were the right fit for us, not just athletically. There's a lot of guys out there that can probably play football here. And now to see those guys come back, those relationships have continued to build. Now we're in a really good place with a lot of these guys.
And final couple questioners rather. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Roll.
Ryan, back in September when you guys lost to Oregon, Jackson still had just a breakout game and had his best career day, and then you guys struggle offensively, but the lone champion is Jackson. Is there something that he's doing that just makes him just consistently always there that some of the other guys can learn from on the offense?
I think he's certainly talented. He has a great skill set of quickness inside. He can understand space. He knows how to set guys up. He's got strong hands. He's very competitive. He's tough. Does a really good job blocking. I think those are all his strengths. He's got more than that, I guess, but and he's highly competitive. And I think those are the things that, the rest of the guys in the offense see.
What have you seen from him that has grown since earlier in the season when he's finally getting on the field and not just playing in a truncated season? What have you seen from him that has
just maturity of his daily approach and his consistency. You can flash when you're young, but you have to bring it every single day. You got to be able to take the meeting to the field. The first time a play's installed, does it take 2 and 3 times before he gets it right? Or can you visualize that and work out all the kinks in the first couple times he runs it, so that when you get to Saturday, you only have so many reps on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to get a single play right. And the maturity of a veteran player is that he doesn't need a whole bunch of reps to get that right with the quarterback. And I think I've noticed that in the last couple of weeks.
And we'll finish up with fourth or middle. Pat Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, back to the red zone stuff. Obviously, you guys have had success in that area this year. So when you have a game like this where it's a struggle, how do you balance not overdoing it in practice when you know that there's been success and film to watch, and then saying, hey, maybe this is an issue as we play better teams? How does that balance work this week?
Yeah, we're not going to change how we allocate our time. It's just we got to do a better job of executing and finding the right things to put our guys in the right positions to be successful. That's it. And it's a little bit of both in there, and we'll continue to work on it. And you start to overdo it in one area, it'll show up in another area. So and we've got our hands full on first, second down, and on third down as well.
Great, Coach. Thank you very
Right.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Folks, we'll be here with Coach Hartline here momentarily. With Mike.
second row middle.
Thank you. Brian, how tough is it to be a talented young wide receiver who could probably be starting at maybe different Big Ten schools, but has to bide their time here because you guys are so talented? How difficult is that on a young wide receiver?
It's probably a question for them. I mean, I think that at times it can be. I think that we have a pretty humble group. I think if you're a pretty humble guy, it's probably not too difficult. You know, there's a lot of things you need to work on. Just because you're able to play other places, that doesn't give you any justification for playing where you're at. So I think they have a pretty good head on their shoulders, and they've been raised by great parents, and they understand there's a process to this. And but that being said, I don't want to assume. It's a good question for them, I think, if you ask me. So.
There's been a lot of great wide receiving cores that have come through here. You run a couple yourself. Do you ever stop and think, wow, I'm coaching perhaps the best wide receiving core to ever come through here?
I pinch myself and can't believe I'm the receiver coach at Ohio State. I'll leave it at that. I think that's pretty surreal to me. More times than you'd probably think, and I don't take it for granted. I think it hits me a lot when I'm coming off the field. I think sometimes in the hustle and bustle, you kind of lose track of that, and you're more focused on executing and, you know, making sure everyone understands what's going on. But there's definitely times, you know, on game days or pregame and opportunities on Monday. I mean, there's times throughout the week all the time that it kind of hits me in the face. So it makes me smile this day, as you can tell. But you know, for me, it's not even about the group. It's just the opportunity I have every day. So.
Yeah, we talked to Marvin Harrison Jr. for the first time last week, and he's very mature in his approach about, I'm just here to get better. I'm not worried about playing time. What have you seen from him, and how close is he to having that kind of, he's ready?
Yeah, Marvin is going to be a great player. Already is a really good player, and he has a very bright future. Yeah, I think the fact of all the things you just said is why he's where he's at. If he didn't have that approach, if he didn't have a bigger picture, if he doesn't want to learn every day, if he doesn't want to bring it, he wouldn't be where he's at. So there's a direct correlation between those two things. He's so good because of, and that's not going to change. I think he knows that. I think, again, raised by great parents, dad was on him from a young age, and you know, that's very evident. And you know, I think that's what I would say is one of the best pleasures so far, and I have to keep crediting their parents, is that, you know, they're great young men. They get great grades. They do everything right. You know, Jaden and Marvin and Emeka. And I never hear from their parents besides, Coach, how you doing? Like, that's it. And it's a direct reflection, I think, with them sometimes. And again, we're very blessed in the room. We have a great group of guys, and they work really hard, and they've been pretty productive. And we have to keep going up. But I think that there's a direct correlation with how well, you know, just the overall atmosphere is. You with me? So you talk about Marv, but same with Emeka and same with Jaden. It's been a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, how close are those guys, Jaden and Emeka?
Yeah, they're doing a great job, and I think I hope they understand there's a bigger picture to it all, and I think they do. Everybody wants to contribute. I mean, Marv's done a great job over the last week. Mech has the whole season. Jaden stepped in a lot when we had some injuries, so may not be as much on game day, but throughout practice, I think Coach would tell you how much he's improved. And again, the group is awesome, and it's so much fun to coach. And I guess I can't emphasize that enough. But everyone's doing a really good job.
Personally, the amount of reps CJ and Jackson got last year as second teamers, since they weren't necessarily getting on the field, is that showing up now with how much more involved Jackson's been in the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think last year they didn't get almost any reps. I mean, I think the ones, you know, had to play almost every game last year. So, like, we were way behind the eight ball with that going into the season. I think the maturity of those men and others, as we've progressed through the season, that's what's showing up now. I think early on was the direct reflection of having so many guys play so much without being able to play last year because of the circumstances. So yeah, I think that, to answer your question, where we're at now was still, you know, the lingering effect, I think, a little bit of the previous year. And it's not just us, it's probably across the country. It may be a little less than those that had a lot of guys come back and be able to maximize their fifth or sixth or eighth year, whatever it is. So we didn't have a lot of that. And, you know, a lot of the good, you know, a lot of the, maybe the higher the programs would have that. So there's a lot of people that are growing throughout the season. And you kind of see that now, you know, trying to compare, game 9 to game 1, it's probably a pretty. We hope to think it's a stark change. So.
And then one recruiting question: when you go big on wide receiver classes, when you have multiple guys, do you want similar body types between those guys, or different type, like variety in the types of guys you go after?
Typically, you want. Well, first of all, I would say I never want to pigeonhole a young guy, a young player of what he can and can't do. I want guys that can do everything, and I don't really believe in gadget players. I think it's you're a receiver, and so some of the learning curve's different for others, but I would say that you definitely want different sizes and kind of a prototype in these kind of spots, and where's their room at, and who's leaving, and what skill set do you need to bring in, and so although Chris might run really, really fast, in a straight line. Jackson plays at a very high speed. It's just different, but you can play him in any position. And I think it's a good understanding of, again, what you have, what do you need, what's leaving. That constant variable is what you want to keep mindful of.
Brian, it seems pretty clear that you have the best top 3 in the country to work with at receiver. Which one has the highest grade in your room through 8 weeks?
I've never looked at that. I have not looked at that. But I think, speaking on grades, I think that, it just depends. I think a little bit plays into the game plan. I'm sure grades change as, you're at the point of attack versus not. So there's a lot of variables that go into that. But I think you guys have seen probably over the year where, whose game is it this game? And I think that's hopefully a good sign of a great offense and a great, a good room that it's hard to take away everybody, and everyone's got to be accountable when it's their day.
When you see these guys, and so like this week, Garrett and Chris didn't grade as champions, how much of a motivator is that for them? I know they want to win the game first and then maybe grade a champion second. What is that like for the players? How will they respond?
I don't know. We didn't really do. I think we do champions when way back in the day, when I was on the team. But that I know probably definitely wasn't public. So the changed atmosphere around that's probably a little different. I think you should ask them. And you should let me know what they say. I'm kind of curious about that. So,
deal.
The fact that it's public, I think, really changes the game. Absolutely, and I think that. But we have standards, and everyone, and everyone, other coaches can talk about their standards. Our standards, you can still probably grade decent, but if there was this, one of these or one of those or one of these, you're not a champion. And then there's kind of a feel to, is it your championship? It's not, across the board. It's not. It's Garrett Wilson's championship level. It's Chris Olave's championship level. So that's kind of how I go about it.
Brian, in the past, you guys have rotated a lot more at receiver than you have this year. Is that just a matter of you not wanting to take Chris, Garrett, and Jackson off the field, or is there still more that you need to see from other guys?
Well, I think that, I guess that's always a conversation. There's multiple ways to answer that, and I'm not always great at being politically correct. I would say that, there's a lot of sayings out there, but if you got 6, you don't have 2. And it's the idea of, everyone at some point, in my opinion, being a former player and knowing where I was as a junior and senior and the work I put in, like I didn't want to come off the field, and if people can see perspective on that sometimes, like one day it's going to be your opportunity, and let me know what you think. When you get in that spot, I'm going to ask you again, do you want me to take you off the field so maybe a younger guy can play, and to me, I think it's past that. If I'm pulling a player off the field, you have to be able to come in and compete at that exact same level, or I'm doing disservice to the O-line, the running back, the quarterback. Like, that's not fair. Like, and it's nothing on any other player, but it's just, you're going to start pulling center every 3 series and put a different center in, and you're going to start pulling. And so why not? Well, because, so I think there's a correlation to that. It couldn't just be, one or the other. I know in a running back world, maybe, Coach Alfred talk on, maybe it's hits on the body. So there's a little more thoughts to that, but we don't live in that world. So I don't know. I mean, it's always constant conversation. It's always a topic that we'll always continue to look at and always be mindful of. But I think this year we've done a pretty good job of getting a good amount of guys in. Again, dictating on the game. But I think we've done a really good job, light years ahead of what we were able to do it last year. So really happy with that. And again, with a lot of football left, hope to continue to mature those guys. Because I know, I think a big part of the maturation for those young guys are their ability to be in the game as well. And I know that. So, there's a couple of guys who wish could have got more in. Maybe we're dinged up a little bit, so they didn't get those opportunities, but they're coming down the road.
Chris and Garrett and Jackson maybe playing a higher percentage of snaps than the starters would have a couple of years ago. Is that more how much those guys have separated themselves, or is it more, that second line of guys not being as experienced as maybe you had in the past?
It's more on the kudos, more to the guys that are just there. It's nothing, no indication on the guys that are ready to go when called upon. So, again, I'm going to speak on our room and where we're at. Phenomenal room, very, very talented. Time will show. And, if we ever get banged up, you'll see. So at this point, we've been pretty darn healthy. And, but I know we're going to need all those guys to fit, do this the right way, the path we want to be on. Something will show up and they'll be ready to handle it as a group.
I want to be able to get everyone in, so just one question per person. Let's go,
One?
Yours are usually pretty long-winded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'll ask my two in one question. You have a unique perspective because you get to look at the defensive backs every day when you watch video, and you get to look at the quarterback every day. Give me the progress of both of those, the unit and the quarterback, C.J. Stroud, from day one to now. What you see on video.
I think what you guys see is what we see. I think that, I think from day one, I've always thought really highly of CJ. I think his poise is the one thing that always jumps out at me. And I think his ability to, flush a play and move on, or great play, let it go, like no indication on the next play, is a very valuable trait that I think he has. And it comes with poise and prep throughout the week and all those things. And so, again, the more he can play and the more he can see, the better he's going to become. And I think the same goes true with the defensive backs. I've always been impressed with those guys. And I think that, again, the more they can be on the field, the more they'll continue to improve. There's no change there with the earlier conversation we had of last year and compared to this year. And but just call it what it always is. When you start a season, we always say the same. Oh, everyone, the best learning is from game 1 to game 2. I bet you guys will hear that next year. And then I bet you we'll talk about how, game 9, we better not be as good as we were at game 1 or we're going to be an issue. So we're taking all those steps. The challenge now isn't to be better than game 1. The challenge now is to be better than the most previous game. And so although we're in a much better spot, we probably think we still have ways to go if we want to get through our in 4 to 5 weeks. So, are we mature enough to take that step? We're going to find out. But, again, there's a process that coach talks about, to be able to prepare, compete and then learn. And that's going to happen every week. And, if we prepare at a high level, we're getting a little better. And then we go compete, we learn, and we can learn from it. We'll keep taking steps. And I think that's across the board, not just the quarterback room and not just the DB room.
You had talked in the preseason about Julian Fleming finally being healthy and kind of how excited you were to kind of get to see him let loose a little bit. And that obviously hasn't been able to happen physically. Just, I guess, how is he handling that mentally, and what are you seeing from him?
No, I'm sure at times it's been pretty hard. I think that how competitive he is and all the stresses that come in this common world, in this daily world. I think it's probably difficult. He should probably touch on it more. But that being said, I think he's feeling a lot better now, and we'll see what this week holds. And he had a great camp, and you could see everything going. And guys would probably talk about Jackson hit on it. He comes back and he's feeling better, and he's been good and made a couple of plays, and we all just kind of look around at each other like, did everyone see that? So, we'll just keep progressing, and we'll I think we'll be in a good spot. But I'm sure it's been pretty frustrating. If it's not been frustrating, you're not a competitor. So I'm sure it's been pretty frustrating.
Brian, Denzel Burke said last week that you were kind of the first guy from Ohio State who came to or talked to him to recruit him. and then he told you he wanted to play DB.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how often that happens to you, that a receiver tells you wants to play DB, and what did you think of Denzel?
That was the first and only so far. Typically I have a feel for it. You'll get some athletes that do both, and I guess they probably tell both coach, no, coach, I want to play offense. No, coach, I want to play defense. Okay, well. So but Denzel hit me right in the teeth. It was good. So I called him up. I was like, man, you're a good player. I want to get to know you. But then sometimes as you're getting to know somebody, you're, over a longer conversation, he was electric, great energy. So we kept talking, and he was like, I was like, yeah. So, basically thinking, offering the guy, I want to offer you as a receiver. He goes, well, coach, I appreciate it, but I'm going to be a DB. I said, well, let me connect you with Coach Combs. But yeah, I mean, so the ball skills are always there. He was a really good high school receiver, and it was pretty cool. That'll be a cool story down the road. We'll see how that all plays out. But I'm sure you guys have talked to him. He's a great young man, and pretty studious too in his academics, and a great Buckeye so far. So he'll keep that up, I'm sure.
Brian, how would you characterize the route running of the guys in your room right now, and how do you guys sort of hold each other accountable on that? Do you point out great instances of it? Do you point out when maybe a guy didn't do it right? Just where's this group?
Very capable. I think that we're a little peaks and valleys sometimes. I think that we're capable of being cleaner. I think we've been cleaner, and I think that the details at which we operate are what separate people. I try to talk to the guys like, there's I don't know, 120 some programs and 2 or 3 receivers on the field every time, if not more. And there's, I don't know, 500 receivers in college football running curl routes. Where do you stack your curl route up compared to somebody else's? So it's not about that you run the route, it's how you run the route. And if you don't, it's not that you block, it's how you block. It's not. So if we try to keep that mindset, and I think sometimes you find ourselves getting lazy. I think that sometimes we find some success when we don't have to give 100% per se, and we're still productive. And that's the biggest nemesis of greatness is finding productivity when you don't have to give it your all, because you can find your lull showing up and it'll catch you at the worst time. So we continue to try to train it. It's an everyday conversation. It battles human, tendencies to just want to relax, and that's just what we want to do. The reason why the Apple, the iPhone was created is because they found a lazy person to design it so they could find the easiest way to open it and the easiest way to operate it. That's why it's such a great device, because we're so used to easy and we want easy. So as athletes, it's no different. So trying not to train that and trying to push through that and hold yourself accountable. Coach, I just went for 80. I know, but that was a terrible route. So like, if you can't grab that, then I guarantee you the terrible route will show up again when you needed a good route. So always a conversation. I'm sure it's in every sport, and so right now where I rank us, I think that we've had some games where like, wow, like that was really, really good. And I think competition is a little bit battle of it, right? You talk yourself into, maybe you think there's an inferior competition when it's, the level of the DB. That's just as receivers. Game, play to play, quarter to quarter, drive to drive. It's always a constant, pre-snap mentality, post-snap execution. And so I grade us, coming off of that game, I grade us as, a C right now. I think we're capable of being A+, but we got to make sure we rebite on that, and it shows up this week.
Ryan, going back to that point, the outside looking in, it looks like in the last handful of months we've seen a maturation process. So some of the guys like Garrett Wilson, for example, just on the field maybe being a little bit more of a leader-ish in that role than what maybe he wasn't a year ago. How much of that is based on what Chris and guys like Cam Babb have done for him, and how much of it is just Garrett buying into what you're just talking about?
I'm sure it's a combination. I would say that, a guy that comes in as a 17 or 18-year-old that's able to play earlier than most and have that, gratification and to be on the field, I would say that you see them early, so you hold them to a standard of the fifth-year senior, but they're nowhere near close to that. So, a guy like Garrett only being in his third year, like this is the normal maturation he should have, maybe, a little faster, a little slower, whatever, but if it was a person that wasn't playing, he's just front and center. So we're seeing it every day, whereas the guy that's not quite there yet has the ability to kind of hide it a little bit. So that's part of it. I think that the room itself and how close they've become and how they've competed, and I would say this, I like sharing this story because it was a really good one. In the summer, we have our workouts, and it's really not easy, but because we compete so much, but there's ways to find time to take it off. All right, you have a running workout, you're running 53s, you're crossing the field, you have a group of guys that are segmented up into different groups, but in this particular group that day I know the two, there's more guys, there's probably 3 or 4 of them, but there was 2 guys, there was Garrett and there was Emeka. And I'll never forget, these guys were running pretty good, and Garrett, was competing to always come in first, and it was good. It was really good to see. Again, it's not about the time, it's about the competition with yourself, and do you want to be in first? So he went out, touched the line, and came back, and Mecca was on his heels, and we were getting close to the last 2 or 3, and those guys went after each other. Like Emeka was like, he's a freshman, just got here, and he went after Garrett, and these guys, the times were like, 15 seconds, they were coming in like 9, like it was ridiculous. And I was just sitting there watching this, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. But it's just the full conversation, right? Garrett never would have probably went that hard if it wasn't for Emeka, and Emeka never went that hard if it wasn't for Garrett. And the fact that Garrett, said no, like that's the maturation you're talking about. So I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened before, but there was something different there. And that's the exact same reason why Emeka came to Ohio State. So just seeing that all unfold and these guys push each other, and that still happens at a different degree now, it's just awesome, And so, Mecca's helping him mature. Garrett, I'm sure, is helping, Mecca mature, and it's all over the room, and to have Jaden Ballard, room with Chris, and they're just doing a good job, a little at a time. And again, hopefully that kind of paints a good picture of how this is continuing to happen, and hope it keeps going.
When Ryan recruits quarterbacks, he always talks about we're seeking out that one elite trait when we're recruiting those guys. Whether it's route running, speed, hands, what's the number one trait you look for receiver-wise when you're recruiting?
I would say there's 2 that go together that aren't sacrificed either way. I would say 1, the type of person you are. If you're not, I don't mean this the wrong way. If you're not the right fit, it'll be really hard to maximize the player. You have to first have the right mental makeup, drive, desire, competitiveness, GAS factor, like all those things. And that's critical. You got to be a good dude. And I think that, for me, I talked about, the working hard and maximizing one's ability. That's really critical. You have all the ability in the world, but you can't maximize it. You will be passed up. And then if you're able to maximize, a good chance you're going to hang up top, because most don't. But I also will never do the best I possibly can to bring a guy into the room that's bad for the other guys, because I told their parents, I told them who they'd be surrounded with, what kind of person that was. I'm not going to change that. And I really, really enjoy coming in and coaching every day. I don't want that to change. And if you're not the right fit, nope, I don't care how good you are. Secondly, I would say your play speed. Like, to me, you can learn a lot of things, and there's some things you probably, either you have or you don't. But I've seen guys improve their hands. I've seen guys get bigger. I've seen guys get faster. I've seen guys change the direction, get better. I've seen football IQ grow. There's just something to one's ability to maximize their current skill set. Like, do they play fast with where they're at? They do. Well, as they get faster, they'll play faster. There's nothing more alarming, in my opinion, to a fast guy that doesn't play fast, because there's a disconnect there. Maybe it's coaching, maybe at that level, I don't know. But I would say those 2 things. You don't have to be the biggest. You don't have to be the strongest. You don't have to be the fastest. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to have the best hands, but you've got to be fast enough. You got to be big enough. You got to have good enough hands. You got to have all those things, and then paired with the ability to mature and grow and be the right fit, you'll maximize all your skill set as long as you have those 2. So that's kind of a 30,000-foot view, I think, I find it important, So, but again, you're not going to find somebody with all those traits. So if you don't have the first piece in the head, then it's going to be really, really difficult to maximize the young man. So,
Big picture question. I think you're one of the rising stars in this profession. And sometimes I'm more intrigued with coaches than I am with players. How difficult would it be to leave Ohio State if you felt you needed to rise up the ladder? Or I'll give you an out, or you can just say I'm too damn nosy.
We know that.
Or do you think you can fulfill whatever you want to fulfill right here?
I mean, Ohio State's my home. And and I have a strong passion here. And, I loved, seeing all the coach conversations and how coaches answer different questions because of all the speculations. I find it very amusing. So now I have to not screw this up. So I would say that I love it here and it's a passion here. And all I care about is this room. And that's my main focus and my forever focus. And outside of that, I think I would be, I'd be lying if I think I'm thinking outside of that, But I'm also not a person to sit here and tell you no, I'm never leaving Ohio State. I'm not saying I ever will. I probably, and you said go up the ladder. Go where? This is the pinnacle of the ladder. So, and the ego at this point, unless it's pretty minimal, I think at times. Maybe other people don't think so, but. I don't need the satisfaction of, calling plays or whatever. I don't know what that ladder is, but to me, I'm at the pinnacle of the ladder. So, unless unless there's a relationship that I know of somebody at this spot, and again, I don't think it's even college. I don't know. That's a big question. Hard to answer. All I know is I love Ohio State. My wife's from here. We live here. Love my house. I don't know. That'd be really hard. It'd be really hard to leave. I don't think that's ever really in the books. So, but the speculation's fun. I mean, to think to watch the movement in college football, sometimes here's what's weird. Sometimes I don't think of myself as a coach yet, still to this day, so I sit back and watch all this as a fan, oh my God, look at all this gossip. This is hilarious, so I don't want to get caught up in the gossip. I want to be outside. I like enjoying watching it. So you guys would keep me out of it. So I know, it's just mind blowing. When did that happen? You know what I mean? I was just an assistant, and I don't even know what happened. Much Meyer talked me into coming here and never left.
Trestle in your head is where your feet are. So you just
Oh yeah, I mean, and okay. So let's answer this another way. Guys come into the room, and the conversations I constantly have with my wife. I'll just you're so darn nosy. The conversations I have with my wife. We can't imagine leaving the guys in the room. I can't even to this day, it gives me chills, trying to walk in and tell them I'm not going to be in the room anymore. That would be really hard to do. And I don't think I can do that. And, never say never, but, almost chokes me up now. I can't even imagine going in there and looking at Marvin and Mac and Jaden and telling them I'm not going to be here anymore. So, low chance.
their family too.
Yeah, I mean, I hang out with them more than my son, and my daughter, and I'm sure the next one on the way, and my wife. So I can't imagine it. So at this point, I'm not going to. I'm good. We're gonna go keep winning football games, keep progressing, and see where these guys look in about a couple of years, and come back in and talk to you guys about them and the next ones and so on and so forth. So looking forward to that side. Yeah, well, I'm sorry about that.
Brian, what does it do for the room when you have guys like Travion and Jeremy that are doing well in the passing game? And do they ever come to you or the other guys in that room for advice on how do I run this route or what do I do?
No, they have great coaches, so they're able to rely on theirs. And, I think that, they do a great job being very multifaceted. I mean, the skill set those guys have to carry in the tight end room and the running back room is pretty impressive. I mean, the amount of banging that goes on, whether I'm in pass pro, carrying the football, that's a lot for running backs now. Tight ends, you have to run a route like a receiver and you got to block like a tackle. And I think it's pretty impressive at the level they play.
What does that do do for your room when they are open like that? What does it create for you?
Well, I
guys?
think when you're gaming, scheming for Ohio State, I mean, defensively, you're always taking something away, but you're always giving something else up. So you got to pick what you want to do. And I think having the people around the quarterback, and whether it be the O line and a tight end, I mean, there's a lot of tools now. I mean, so you got to pick which ones you want. You want to basically get beat by.
Brian, is there something that Jackson does just extraordinarily well, or is he just an all-around guy who can do everything you guys ask him to do?
Yeah, he can do everything I ask him. Pretty impressed with Jack so far, his growth. He's probably our best blocker in the room. He is very dynamic when it comes to change of direction. Ball skills are off the chart. I think that my happiest part with Jax has been his growth off the field and honest conversations, just everything, life. I mean, he's just growing up, and it's awesome. And I'm excited to see where he continues to grow. And I think he's one of those guys that, if he chooses to, can be really a major factor in the leadership side of things if he wants to become that. Go ahead, you're good.
Go ahead. When you were recruiting him, you see the crazy numbers he's putting up in Texas high school football, and you have kind of a plan that you set forth for him in recruiting. Do you even see that he's maybe a little ahead of schedule than what you thought he could be at this point in his career?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I had a schedule for him. I don't have really schedules for anybody. But you got to anticipate on how things, can plan out and pan out. Schedules are really fun until you go out in the field and you're like, well, that was worthless because he's not ready. So, but that being said, I figured from high school with the numbers he put out, he was just screwed when it came to college because there's no way you're going to get that in college. But he did a pretty good job handling that and realizing, wow, like I only get 4 or 5 targets a game. I better maximize those in college. In high school, I don't know, like 30 a game or something. But it's been fun coaching him. And, so again, I think the biggest thing is just watching the continued growth. He's in a good spot right now, I think. So, and really he's a mainstay in the blocking world. That's got to continue, because for us to get the ball out in the perimeter and see what Trey can do that with and the running backs can do with the ball in their hands, being impactful on that perimeter is really critical for us moving forward.
Okay. Coach, you guys have been rolling for 3 games there. Then you get into Penn State, and everybody knew their defense was probably better than the teams you had played in the previous games. In the first 5 drives, you get 1 field goal. And just what's going through the minds of you guys as you're trying to formulate how you're going to chip away, and eventually you get the pass to Olave, and things changed a little bit after that. You were able to maybe sustain some more drives after that. Just that whole process, and that's kind of a defense you're going to play more, see more defenses like that down the stretch, I guess.
Yeah, I think it was good probably for everyone. And in hindsight, I'd say at that point in time, you're a little frustrated. But when you're going through that process, you're just trying to identify, is it execution or is it play? It's a bad scheme. You're trying to go through that. And I think that, it's always the challenge of doing it in live conversation and live bullets. But then you go back and you're able to review it, on Sundays after the fact, and you're reviewing, whether the conversation and dialogue was correct. You're reviewing whether the play was schematic or was execution. And typically when it's not going the way you want it to go, it's probably a little bit of both. And so we have to be better as coaches, putting guys in position to be successful, communicating the expectations on certain plays, play in and play out maybe, and the players got to do a good job of executing it. So we're all in it together. I would say that it's good from a discomfort standpoint to fight through something. So that was good for us. I mean, it's a lot easier to say once you win. You don't like to say that if you lost. So I'll give you that one. I would say that, at the end of the day, though, all kidding aside, the resilience of the team is really important. And I think that the defense did a phenomenal job, getting us the ball back consistently for us to kind of right the ship. And if you don't have that opportunity, it can be a little more difficult because as an offense, you just want to get back on the field and fix it, right? And so, I think that it was a great example of how well the defense played, how we made adjustments in halftime. All of that's are critical parts of success as a football team. And I think for the big part of it, we did a really good job. And obviously, the champions list, right? I mean, we're all, it goes back and forth on execution and scheme, but it's like, I think, and I agree with Coach Day. I'm sure he may have said it was probably one of the best things we could have had at that point in time going into these last 4-5 games, right? So a lot of learning tape. And now, again, prepare, compete, learn. Our ability to learn from that will be really important. And then the ability for the defense to, maintain the level at which they played will be really important. The roles kind of switched, so I think it's really healthy for the team and for competition. Yes, sir. Yep. Thanks.